So thank you for doing this, Gordon. If you don't mind, can you give a quick intro to who you are so that people know who you are?
Yeah, so I'm Gordon Maclelland. I'm CEO and founder of Working with Parents in Sport, a company based in the UK, but we work with sporting organisations all around the world, trying to help support organisations, coaches and parents, working more effectively together, hopefully in the best interests of children.
Yes. So the first thing I wanted to ask you today, and I'm just looking for the exact quote. Today I found this article on, what is this? MLSsoccer.com. And it's regarding the big disaster of the development academies. And, the DA, they just I don't know if you know that they stopped the program in the US. One of these guys, who I guess, he is the head coach of the FC Dallas, Luchi Gonzalez. And he says this: I think US soccer intentions and efforts have been amazing. They helped everybody improve. If someone says otherwise, they're a fool. They're lying through their teeth or they're blind. Now, I think we're talking about two different countries. What in the hell is he talking about? Because like we were just talking about a few minutes earlier, that's not the US that I know for soccer. That is not how it works here.
No, I think it's obviously difficult to know I guess the exact specifics of the part of the program that he's talking about from afar. I mean, my feeling on it over here, I've got a son in a Premiership football academy, so I do understand that whole development soccer pathway, and I do stick up for people who have created so-called high-performance environments, because there are an awful lot of positives. If children are in those programs, you get good group sizes, you get good coaching. In lots of them, the child is looked after brilliantly holistically, as well as what they're achieving on the field. Sometimes academies get a really bad press, and actually that's really unfair, because they're not all bad. They're not all bad by any stretch. I guess the problem comes when academies are perhaps selling a dream, and maybe that development isn't in the best interests of the individual, and perhaps they're keeping parents in the dark without a real understanding of what's going on. And I think people buy into them, and sometimes, because they are deemed as high performance, nobody really questions what goes on in those environments. So you've either got to like it or lump it, certainly from an external point of view. And I think there's a fear sometimes from parents that they won't intervene because they worry that it's going to have a negative impact on their child, and either their selections moving forward or their development. And I think those ones are unhealthy. I mean, I don't know enough about the ins and outs of the soccer program, in the States. But what I do know across the vast majority of sports, as we joked about earlier, that very rarely is the best 10-year-old soccer player ending up being a professional player, just like the best 8-year-old tennis player ranked #1 in the world is nowhere to be seen when they're 18. So I think with all of these things, we've just got to be very careful about how we sell the message and the impact of them, because clearly what's happened over there is getting all the very best players together, playing against all the other very best players and travelling thousands of miles, has clearly not produced or had the impact that they thought that system was going to have. Because if it was,
if it did,
if it was, then we'd all sit back and say, yeah, well, this is how it is, and actually we can point to this, this, and this. Hasn't it been absolutely brilliant? And clearly that hasn't happened, because you wouldn't be sat here saying they've abolished it. So yeah, I think it'll be different in different countries. I think we've got to be careful how we perceive these academies and high performance things, because there are a lot of positives in them as well. They're certainly not all negative.
No.
But I think it's a good opportunity, you know, in the current climate to maybe assess where we are and how effective these sports programs are based on a bit of evidence, rather than somebody saying that this is the best way to do it.
No, absolutely. One of the things that, since I've started making the movie, has been quite fascinating to me is being how, especially when talking to parents and coaches and parents relationships, parents and kids relationships, and obviously parents coaches relationship, it's how big culture has an effect on how parents talk to the coaches or to their kids, or even how much do parents accept or how far they accept a coach to go with their child. Have you seen that? And do you think there is a one size fits all, or do we have to be careful and really approach it on a person by person type thing?
Oh, look, I think culture is huge, and anywhere that you see really effective parental engagement and everybody working well together, you can clearly see a very defined culture. And I'm talking from the top of the organisation or the specific club, that the management have been very consistent with their messages. I'm talking about every coach being gatekeepers of that culture and all being consistent. And only then can you deliver the consistent messages to parents, because if they're arriving and there's no clearly defined culture, we have lots of different coaches. And I'm not talking about coaching styles here. I'm talking about underlying messages of an environment. You can't expect parents to buy into things, because what parents will do by human nature is they will conform to the environment that's already there. You know, look, when we go and watch a tennis match now in the world, or we go and watch golf, you don't see people shouting when they're about to serve or about to put a 6 feet putt. Well, that's because we understand that that's what that environment looks like, and that's not what we behave. So we've got thousands of people watching, all conforming to that environment. And I think it's the same in the youth sports experience, that at the moment, parents will come into a program, they will see how everybody else behaves, they will see the coach behavior, and they will just carry on to fit in with what everybody else is doing. Or based on the experiences that they had as a child growing up, perhaps how their parents were with them, or perhaps their experiences from their own sporting journey, that's what it looks like. And it doesn't have to look like that. You know, when we do coach in a certain way, and it goes as far as this. I know we've got this idea that coaches go one way with the players and parents go another, but that's not right either. You know, there's sort of three legs to a stool here, isn't there? There's parent, who's the most influential person in the child's life. There's coach, and there's the child, the athlete. And you remove any one of those legs, and you've got a pretty unsteady platform. So separating them isn't great.
No.
Because often, a lot of the times, then parents join up their own dots, make up their own messages, have a guess at what they think's actually happening, upset the person next to them because it's an ill-informed view, who then goes away and thinks they're not doing the best for their child, which we all want to do anyway. And before you know it, you've got a really unhealthy environment. So all these things need to be really well thought through.
Yes. One of the things I have noticed is that a lot of times you have, even in the best of intentions, you have parents who think what their child wants because their child hasn't told them, or they say, well, kind of, yes, maybe, yeah, I kind of, they're not very upfront with them. And then they end up having to go to, therapy. And the parent and the child, they are speaking two different languages because neither of them are listening to the other. Because it can't just be, but then you have to bring the coach into that, and there has to be an open line of communication.
Yeah, but and also it's interesting you say that, speaking different language, parents have got to ask their child why they play.
Mm-hmm.
It's as simple as that. We talk about this in our workshops all the time live. You've got to ask your child why they are playing. Now, you will get different responses at different ages because children change and have different goals and different aspirations. But you can't possibly support the sporting journey or help motivate your child or help it if you don't know why they're playing in the first place. And if they're playing to have fun and to be with their friends, for example, and you're playing that you want them to be the next MLS soccer player at the age of 11, you in the long term you're going to have you're going to have a major issue, because we know that as children get to those late teenage years and they start making their own choices and different things come into their lives, that they'll make that choice anyway, and you've damaged your relationship in the meantime.
And that, and that's kind of, well, of course, my son will be the next Messi, but no, obviously I'm kidding. To go back for a second to what you said earlier about how parents come into a new environment, new club, a new academy, a new whatever, depending on what the sport is, and they kind of try to not confirm, but mimic what other parents are doing or how they behave and what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. Because I've seen, and I'm sure you have too, so many times you see parents who are so quiet when they're in one team, but then they join another club who the parents are going bananas at every turn. So then they have to start going, because if not, they don't fit in. Yeah. But then you're not giving the right message to your children. So how can you as a club or as a coach work with that or change that?
Well, I think you've got to go back to, what's in the best interest of the child, and what's in the best interest of environments that create, decent sportsmen and women and decent sports people. And that's got to be effectively laid out in parents' meetings. But again, not telling people that this is how you parent and this is how you behave. And because parents are fed up of being told by sports that they get it wrong and they do a bad job and whatever else. For me, there's two sides to this. There's got to be a greater amount done by the organisation and the coaches. I don't have an issue coaching my groups of players. I have no issue on the side of the field. I have no parents yelling multiple instructions at the kid every 2 minutes, and the children achieve something. But that's because they arrive and they know that that's what it's going to be like, and we've talked about it and they understand it. And because everybody's behaving in the same way, nobody feels uncomfortable with that. The natural tendency for parents is to yell because we want our child to feel that we're there supporting them. And of course, without the sporting background, the only way we can do that is shout the loudest so they can hear us. But because we don't want to be accused of not being a good parent.
Yeah, so not caring.
Yeah, exactly. And so, but it needs a bit of leadership here. It needs people who are coaching the groups to get everybody in and say, guys, this is what it's going to look like, and it's going to be brilliant because we know this X, Y, and Z, and we're going to try and be different to other people. And I can guarantee you that they'll get the results as well. This is the funny thing. If you actually get the environments right around it, regardless of what any other team does and how they behave, we can only control our own. We can't be accountable for other people's behaviours and how they behave. So if everybody took on that attitude and that responsibility to it, it would soon change. And by the time you get a club, you're turning up and everybody's doing it, or all the home team are doing it, and the away team start looking around saying, well, what's happening here? And particularly if the home team is successful on the pitch as well with it, everybody else starts looking and saying, well, hang on, that was a totally different environment to the one I've seen. But, that'll be going on as well, Joel. I mean, it's not bad. Yeah. It's not bad everywhere. There'll be some amazing environments that are already doing that. Unfortunately, in the parent sport world and whatever, we tend to focus on that last 20-30% who potentially give it a really, really bad name. But what I do know is that there's also a middle 50% who really would love some more love and support about what's actually going on. And I think who could be swayed with their own approach and their own behaviours with somebody actually giving them some effective guidance and making them understand why. Not telling them how to parent or what to do, but just understanding why it's got to look like this.
What do you think of, because this is one of the things that lately, I don't know if they do this in England or not, but here in the US, they've started doing something called silent sidelines or something like that, where no one is supposed to say anything of any kind. Not even like, yeah, when somebody scores, like absolutely nothing. And it's so bizarre.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan, I'm afraid. I get asked to support lots of silent campaigns. I support the underlying message behind it about environments being more effective and people not yelling multiple instructions onto players. But sport is passion. Sport is perceived that way. Sport should be like that. And actually, I think playing in complete silence is really weird. It's completely wrong, and I don't think that's healthy. Look, in academy football, where we are in the UK at the very top end, there's certainly no yelling on of instructions, but we are allowed to clap and say well done, and there is some noise around the experience. It's just the specific instruction piece. So I am a fan of the underlying education behind it, but I don't think we do enough to explain why we're doing it and do the educational piece. We put on a campaign which gets lots of people's backs up because it's suddenly come out of nowhere and somebody's come out with the idea. When actually, if we do that, but we also have a really good parent education piece about why we're doing it, and then move the environment back to what we've already talked about, which is just normal, is a far healthier thing to do. The world can be a sterile place. We don't want to start making the weekend and the sporting experience sterile as well. I think that's a sad indictment on where we have let the sports experience go. I think we've all got to hold our hands up to that that we've even got to that stage where we're having to come up with sort of blanket campaigns like that just abolish everything. We should almost be embarrassed by that.
It is one of the best experiences I had as a father, but also as a coach, was back in January before this whole mess started. We went to LA to a tournament with my son's team, and we were playing it late at night, well, evening time. And it was starting to get really cold, and the kids were fighting back and forth, one score, two score, one score. I mean, it was like one of those all the way. We actually scored the winner at literally just as the referee is about to blow his whistle. And I remember the fans, the parents on both sides were yelling and screaming and cheering. I mean, all positive, nothing yelling and screaming, good things. And I remember when we scored the final goal, the other parents, I mean, jokingly, they said, "Oh, it looks like you guys won the World Cup." And we were like, well, I mean, we wanted to show the kids that we were, but it was all positive. There was no like taunting or anything bad. And it was so sad that After the game, the director of the other team came to us and told us, thank you so much for such an amazing time, even though they lost. And they said, we had such a great time with you guys because you were so passionate, you were into it, and we never see stuff like this. Now, how sad is it that somebody has to point out when there is a positive time on the sideline as well as on the field? Because on the field, the kids were amazing. There was nothing happening. The refs were great. I mean, it was complete as it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Isn't it like terribly sad that we are at the point where it shocks us when we see such a positive moment?
Yeah, it is. I think that certainly in the, one thing I've found over the years, certainly in coaching, is the inability of the adults in the experience to just actually say, do you know what, the better team won today, or actually they won. Because what it also leads on to is this myriad of excuses that we have when our children lose, or the reason that it's happened. And we just are desperate to apportion blame, either to make ourselves feel better or make our children feel better. And actually, do you know what? They recover pretty quickly anyway. They're more interested in what they're having for the tea. It's the adult that struggles to get over a lot of the time what's actually just happened. But you see, again, in making excuses for our children, we all talk as parents. You ask any parent, they would love to have resilient children who are determined. Well, if we're making excuses for them all the time, we're not going to have resilient children, because that just fights against any form of resilience. So we in our behaviours, we're always contradicting by thinking we're doing good some of the things that actually would be the most effective. But my sympathy comes is, when have we had these discussions like this? We have great chats with parents in workshops who love the type of discussion we're having now and are like, wow, yeah, never thought about it. Like, yeah, yeah, you can see that. Nobody's having a go at each other. Nobody's apportioning blame. But who's actually doing that? Where are those consistent messages coming from to make us all understand what the journey really looks like?
Yeah, I know there was a unfortunate incident couple months ago, well, more than a couple months ago, late, just before Christmas, here, where there was regular, some tournament or something, I forget what it was, soccer match, where you had a mother who was watching her 12-year-old or 13-year-old play, and somebody on the other team committed a foul against her son. Regular foul, nothing terrible. She came down from the stands or from the bleachers, went to the field and hit the other kid, to the shock and dismay of everyone, because it's like, what in the name of everything that's holy are you doing? I mean, even admitting that child maybe even went spike hot or something. What possessed you to hit a child? Not even your own, which would be wrong to begin with, but just a random somebody else's kid, which of course started a huge fight. Police was called, arrest, etc., etc. It's like, well, what are we doing?
Yeah, it's bizarre that the environments, sort of come to that. It's, I mean, look, thankfully, I think it goes back to what I said earlier, though. I think we always highlight the extreme end of it. And, when you think how many actual games go on at a weekend and how isolated those incidents are, it's not everybody by any stretch. But how we've become so protective of our children, or to the stage where we're seeing, children sport. I think TV and media not have got any part in this to blame, but we've got to understand that children's sport is not the same version as what we watch on the TV. Ultimately, yep. we've tried to sort of mimic the professional game and how that's perceived and how we support in those environments to an under 10 game. and that's wrong. They're not mini professionals. I know we like to dress them up and think they are, but they're not. The children and the 10, and they can still be very talented, and we can still want them to get college scholarships, and we can still want to share their dream of potentially being professional sports people. But at that point in time, they are not professionals, and I think some of us have just lost that sort of perspective on it.
It is, and we're all human, because a perfect example, there was this, because in Las Vegas, especially, the town is not that big, so you tend to play pretty much everybody all the time. And I remember one time we played this team, and they have a coach, and he was always very nice. Always, never had a problem with him, very polite, had great games with him, normal, how it's supposed to be. But one time, this guy lost his head, and he started going after the referee, and he started like getting to the field, yelling and screaming. And because we're human.
Yeah.
And I think that's also sometimes we forget that we all screw up. We all make a mistake. We all say the wrong things, because since that event, when we played him again, he's back to his normal self. So it's, I think a lot of times we do judge too fast, and we don't realize that we are human. We all make mistakes. None of us are perfect, and we can't expect perfection because it doesn't exist. So kids, we screw up too.
I live and breathe this stuff every day, and I make some horrible mistakes as a parent still, and I should be preaching to the converted. No, it's an impossible task. What I do know though is I think that if you have a greater awareness of everything, I think you learn to develop strategies that work for you within your environments, your family context, and whatever else that makes it effective. And I think you spot some of those danger signs. And I think if you know there's certain things that may happen that are going to tip you over the edge, I think you're able then to maybe take yourself away from those before they actually happen. And I think it's just that greater awareness. And it's the same for coaches, isn't it? That ultimately for our young children, if we want them to develop as brilliant humans as well, actually our role modeling as parents and coaches is really, really important. We've got a huge part to play, because our children, will mimic what we do and what they see. And our role modeling's got to be so positive. It won't be all the time, because as you say, we get it wrong sometimes. But on the whole, but we've got to be aware of it in the first place. I think there's quite a lot who aren't aware of it in any way whatsoever, and then just carry on, and then the child just follows suit, and it's not always positive. And that's not a criticism of people. That's just how it appears sometimes.
I know. I love when people say we do it for the kids, and then the first chance they get is like, I'm gonna win, I am gonna do this, and it's like, wait, you're not playing, you're not doing anything, so why are you saying I nothing?
Yeah.
Because it's something that all the time I hear that I'm doing it for the kids. I love the kids are my kid. It's like, and then it always is fascinating to me who gets the trophies. Is always the coach in the US. It's not the kids. When Liverpool won the Champions League last year, it wasn't Klopp that got the Champions League trophy. It was the captain that got the trophy. And of course, then everybody else, when you win the Stanley Cup, it's the captain that raises the thing. But when you win like the Super Bowl and things like that, it's always the owner and I think that's a lot, it trickles down to when we win a tournament at the youth level, it's the coach that gets it. It's the coach that gets the credit, not the kids.
Yeah, and I think that can be a problem as well, that coaches end up with too much power in certain environments, and they're not held to account. They're not held to account themselves in their own behaviours. And I think parents can then accept some of the things that are going on, even if they probably know deep down they're not right, as long as they're winning. I think that nobody will then question anything. But, you know, you look at the sporting environments now and the cultures around the world, and you look at what's happened in US gymnastics with the abuse stuff and everything that's gone on. I just don't think we can have this closed door policy where we put them up on this pedestal that with a be all and end all. Coaches in the UK, you know, thankfully, I do have to say, aren't perceived like that. You know, there's very much a greater emphasis on the athlete and creating environments for the athletes to thrive. And a lot of the coaches I speak to across a number of sports in the UK, I never feel that they're taking all the credit for the players or feel that they have that power. That wouldn't be a normal model for us, I don't think, over here. I think, yes, it will happen, but it certainly wouldn't be widespread. I would say there's more of the other practice going on than this. Maybe there wasn't, you know, maybe there wasn't 10 years ago, Joel, but I would say no. there's been a definitive shift in how we perceive the sporting experience over here.
Have you encountered when you work with coaches and or parents, depending on where you are, more or less willingness to open-mindedness and sharing and learning and growth? For example, here I have a very hard time communicating with other coaches, in the sense of, if I say, hey, Gordon, you know, I really am struggling with my defense. Can you help me out? Do you have some pointers? What am I doing wrong? So few coaches here are willing to share any information of any kind. Have you encountered that when you do your work?
Do you know what? I do have to say, over here at the moment, the openness and collaboration of people across a wide range of the UK sports, and their willingness to share information, and top coaches to share information to grassroots coaches, and everybody to help each other out, has been absolutely incredible. And no, I don't feel that in any way. I think, you know, over here, if I went and spoke to a coach who whatever and asked questions, or vice versa, I wouldn't hold back information, and I don't think people would either. But this is where it's become all about the coach who's coaching a youth team and thinking that, you know, they're the next Super Bowl coach. Or over here, the next under-8 football manager, thinking the next Jose Mourinho. Well, hang on. It's not about you.
Yeah.
It's about the children at those younger ages, and you're a key part in their development. And rightfully, you should be loving it and getting the credibility as well, because you've done a really good job. But it's ultimately not about the coach, as you say. It's about the athlete. So it sounds like there's just a few things that have gone on that have maybe allowed this sort of power shift to happen, and I'm not sure it can be healthy. I'm not sure the coach is king. The coach has all the power, and the coach can do what they want, and the coach is perceived as holding on to information can be possibly good in the youth sporting space.
No, and it's always bizarre to me, because I love sharing stuff with whoever. I haven't coached for decades like you or other people have, but I always, you know, if I know something, I'll share it. I mean, I had, you know, a coach came to me about a year and a half ago or something like that, and he asked me, "Do you have something for this?" And I said, "Absolutely." And his response wasn't "thank you." It was, "I can't believe you're doing this."
Right. Yeah.
Like, it was like he was completely shocked.
Yeah.
And I was like, and to me, it was so normal. It's like, well, why wouldn't I want to help you?
Yeah.
I mean, because I hope that if I help you eventually, if I need something, you may help me. Because, you know, that with kids, it's 100 different things that can happen in 100 different minutes. Every minute is a different experience with them. Have you coached your kids or no?
Yeah, no, not in a, yeah, I taught them as, when they were very young, as their PE teacher, at school. But if I'm really honest, just with the way I am as a personality sometimes, and I'm very aware of that. Again, it goes back to being aware, and the fact that I've got a background in sport. I've done everything to basically let everybody else do it and take a step back. So I was fortunate with football over here that you know, my children have both had really good coaching, and I was able to just palm them off to them. And the same with their tennis and their gymnastics and their swimming. I keep a check on, you know, what they're getting. And of course I play loads in the garden just because I love that. And of course I help them out technically if I spot something that I can help in as a coach or a PE teacher, which I am. Yes, of course I help, but I haven't specifically coach them in a formal context, and I'm very conscious that I don't always turn the back garden into a coaching session. And I wasn't great at that. I wasn't great at that to start with. I was always thinking ahead and trying if I could make it better. And actually, they just wanted to play and be creative, and I've got better at that. I just leave it now. And if I can add a bit of feedback every now and then and try something different and dress it up more as play, then I tend to do that instead.
One of the things that it's always fascinating to me, because I didn't want to coach my kids, but they both asked me to, and it's been great because we set up rules from the beginning. And it's such an awesome time. I love it because I think that. And I'm very, very rigorous about it. Like, I don't allow anyone, like, even if we carpool with someone after a game and they start talking about the game, I immediately jump and say, nope, we're not talking about this. We're going to get some ice cream. We're going to get a pizza. We're going to McDonald's, or we're going home. Whatever, you know, whatever it is that we need.
So you can help me here, because just a couple of random quotes. I won't attribute the quote for you, but I've got it in front of me because we've nearly finished this project. It's already been sort of edited and published. So what I just want from you, what's the best bit of you coaching your own child? What's the one best bit? What do you think is the best bit of doing it?
Of coaching my son and my daughter, it's to be with them and to see them grow. And
what is your most challenging thing of coaching your own child, and what has been an unexpected? So what sort of cropped up during the experience that you didn't really expect, that's maybe shocked you a bit? So it's your biggest challenge and anything unexpected that maybe happened.
For coaching my son, it's been the fact that because he is good, when I try to take him out and make sure that everybody plays, you know, everybody has the same amount, well, not the same amount because that's impossible, but as much, I actually have to fight parents who tell me, no, put him back so we can win the game, which is bizarre to me, because you would think, well, if I put my son back, your son is not playing. So I don't understand, you know what I mean? So that's been the hardest, because my son happens to be good. So it's like, it's a bizarre world for me, because I'm like, I want to take him out so that other kids can play. And yet parents force me to I literally had people in the middle of the game yelling at me, not at the kids, at me, put him back, if not, we can't score. It's very fascinating to me.
Brilliant. Perfect. Thank you. That helps. Yeah, it's just part of the book. We're just getting lots of quotes from the grassroots world about how they perceive it. So we've got a lot of the world's leading sports stars, but we're getting input at grassroots level as well.
No, feel free to quote me. I don't mind at all. Obviously, I can't compare to the big hunches that you may have, but no, I have found it to be a very rewarding. But I think that the fact that we set the rules from the very beginning was the most important thing that we could have done, because then he knows and she knows that when we're at practice, I'm coach, and when I'm at home, I'm Daddy. There's no crossovers. You know, when we go to the game or we go to practice, we don't talk about it. Like, not even mentioning it. I don't even think my son, when we get into the car, he says, "Who are we playing today?" And I said, "I don't know." Because most of the times I don't really care. It doesn't really matter who you're playing. You're just playing another team. And he says, "Okay." And that's it. It's the only time that we talk about it. Usually we listen to music, talk to each other, usually quiet, because he likes quiet. He doesn't like a lot of this. So I just let him be. And the same on the way back. He just says, "Yeah, that was fun," or "That was a good practice," or "Thank you," or small, tiny acknowledgement. And then we talk something else, or we don't even say anything, because he needs to, come down from the high of the game or the practice, and he needs to decompress. But I love it because, you have a routine, and that's the best part.
Yeah, cool. Brilliant.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun for that. Out of curiosity, how long do you guys play? Like, what are the games lengthwise in England?
It
do you guys play 60 minutes for 10-year-old?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on age. It depends on age groups, but they tend to play, in the younger ages, no more than an hour. It's 20 minutes each way, and maybe another 20 as a sort of development side. It's not a huge amount of time.
Yeah, because but out of curiosity, I was talking to one coach from an academy team in Italy, from one of the big clubs, and he was horrified when I told him that here in the US we often play for tournaments. When we have a tournament, we play 3, 4, 5 times in like 2 days, at any age, whether you're playing 11 or you're playing 4v4, with the 6-year-olds. And he was in shock. I mean, and he coaches very high up there, and he couldn't believe it. He's like, "There's no way. We would never do that here." How is it in England?
Yeah, I think it's pretty well organised, and even when they go to play in tournaments, obviously the length of games are massively reduced. So you end up maybe playing lots of different teams, but it still sort of adds up to the same amount of playing time as what would be deemed acceptable. So maybe if we're used to playing for an hour, you would play 6 games on that day, but they would all be 10 minutes long. So you would end up playing lots of games and feel like you're in a tournament, but the playing time is still set by a lot of the sports saying this is what's acceptable on a day for a young athlete.
Yeah, no, because if we play usually 60 minutes, we would play 3, 4 games. They're 60 minutes each. So it's brutal.
Yeah, that is. And again, that goes back to how's that in the best interests of a player? And that's why your Italian academy guys probably sat there saying, "What on earth's going on?" Because that cannot be in the best interest of an athlete. That's where I'm afraid there must be other adults that have another agenda, because you wouldn't make that decision. You just wouldn't make that decision as an acceptable thing. And this isn't about being precious either, and not being hard. I was a tough sportsman and whatever else in my own right. This isn't about being tough and hard. It just doesn't make sense. There's no logic to it.
No, I was reading an interview with this, and I forget his name because he had a very complicated last name to pronounce, from the Netherlands, and he coaches there. And he said that one of the things that he doesn't understand of these tournament type situations in the US is that you play the first game and you're at the top of you're fresh, ready to go. But by the 4th game, there is no way that you can possibly be healthy to perform, and you're just going on whatever's left in your body. And I see it with my kids. After a tournament, they come home and they pass out. They go to sleep.
Yeah.
I mean, they crash. But that cannot be healthy for kids to completely crash for 3 days, because then they have to recover.
No, not at all. No, not at all.
Hopefully you have this coronavirus thing ends soon so that we can all go back to normal.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so I wish all you guys over there all the very best, and hope you stay safe and get out the other side.
Same for you guys. Same for you. And thank you so much for your time. I'm going to let you go and enjoy your coffee if you haven't had it yet.
Yeah, no, I am going to enjoy that, Joel. Really good to catch up. And listen, if I can help in any way, please let me know.
I will absolutely do that, and you know I will. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Enjoy it. Be safe, and we'll talk soon.
Take care. See you soon. Cheers. Bye.